Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Raven Rabbit Wellness Studio podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jackie Cope, and I'm here to talk to you about all things life, healing, and happiness with the spiritual indigenous approach. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Raven Rabbit Wellness Studio podcast. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Cope, and I'm here to welcome you to our amazing podcast we have here at Raven Rabbit, where I'm diving into everything life, healing, and happiness with a holistic, indigenous, spiritual approach. That mission and vision I have is so important to the work that I do every day at Raven Rabbit. And it is an entry point for those of you who are just starting your journey. This is episode 8, and today we're going to talk all about where do I start my spiritual journey. I've been having this question a lot from some clients who are interested in learning more, and I thought it'd be a great episode to dive into how I got started and some entry points that might be right for you. Now, there's no one right way to get started on your spiritual journey. We're all very unique human beings who have our own lived experiences, past lives, all of these things that make us who we are. And so it's not this tidy little pretty plan where you get a book or a packet or information and it says, here you go, here's step 1. And once you accomplish step 1, you can go to step 2. This isn't how your spiritual journey will work. You're going to have to take a leap of faith, and the thing that presents itself to you as an entry point, you're just going to have to dive into it and see where it takes you. And then as you're on your journey, step 2 will then reveal itself to you. So as for me, we have to back up in my life as to where I got started. I have always been very intuitive and very connected to the universe. I started when I was young with seeing spirits, seeing spirits from the other side that people don't generally see. Anyone who's very close to me already knows this about me. That happened through my childhood often. It really was very strong as I was becoming a woman and I was changing. And then it kind of died off in my high school years, but I was very much pushing it away. I didn't want to be around it. I didn't want to accept my gifts, and I didn't want to be involved because my grandma warned me that if you're not going to be all in and you don't have the strong protection, you can't do it. So with my grandma's warning, I really backed off on spirituality. I want to say like conversing or talking to the other side. That's not really, more like entertaining the other side. So they kind of went away. Throughout college, living in various places, there were some very active places where I went to college in San Diego. So those things started happening again very strongly, especially when I lived in my own apartment with my then husband. That was an older building, so it became stronger again in my early 20s. And it was something that was just a part of my life, and I just accepted it for what it was, and I tried to ignore it. My answer to all of that at the time, without being connected to deep spirituality communities, I was going to church. That was my answer at the time. So I've always been very open to spirituality, and I feel like there's so many entry points you can have. It could be that you grew up with seeing various things and having mystical things happen to you. It could be that you were in church and maybe when you sing, you feel that Holy Spirit running through you. That's all a part of being connected to the spiritual side. And there's always more to go to from there. So I did church. I did that for many years. I always felt like something was still missing, and there was just a calling in me that I knew the things that I saw and experienced were never going away. This is the path I'm supposed to be on. I am supposed to be on the path of a spiritual healer. And it became more strong when I got with my current partner now, who was just very supportive of the things that I had to tell him and pointing out that it was a gift and I should follow it. And I did, and I tried to do it in the best way I could. Getting reconnected into my Native American community really helped too. It was something that was always there in my life. I'm not completely reconnecting Native. It was there. But because of all of the things that happened with assimilation and boarding school, my aunts and uncles were very reserved in what they shared with me, how we discussed our past and our history, because it's still a very sensitive topic. But it was there. But as I embraced it more for me and my family who's seeing it, who are also now embracing it more, it became much more deeper and it became very positive. All of this work I do now is in light and love. Which reminds me, at the beginning here, I did not say our invocation for this episode today. So with it being light and love, I was led to do some Reiki training, and I got this really great invocation I say at the beginning of our podcast episodes, and I changed it up a little bit to meet my indigenous needs and what I think is the message I am here to share. So with that, I want to bring in our Creator. So, dear Creator, please make me a pure, incorruptible channel of loving, healing, divine presence, and provide me with all the protection, guidance, and wisdom I need. Only allow the divine and healed to be present with us today. So when I heard that invocation, that prayer, I was like, this is it. This is how I make sure I always stay on track when I'm doing my work. And I've done a lot of work to make sure that in those moments of seeing the other side or feeling the other side, that doesn't scare me anymore. It's because I'm making sure that my space is an incorruptible channel and that only my healed and divine guides and ancestors are allowed to be with me in this work. So it's really important to make sure that you're doing all of this in a good way. So that brings me back to my story. I've always been open to it. So that might be your experience where it's always been kind of there, not knowing what to do with it. Maybe I didn't have a ton of guidance on it. And there's the other side too, where it was just never exposed to you. You never saw it. It wasn't something around in your childhood. So all of it could be a lot to take in as you dip your toe into the spiritual world. So there's so many entry points. I had a client this week telling me that she was really interested in my services and she didn't know if she wanted to do a card reading first or a Reiki healing session first. She didn't know where to go, so then she was kind of going back and forth. And I told her that no matter which one she chose, it was the right one, that it started that way for a reason. She ended up choosing a card reading when she was with me and telling me this. And that is just so important to just pick the one that's calling you the strongest and go with it. Welcome it into your life in a good way and see where it takes you. So for me, my entry point, really getting into it further was, like I said, opening up with my American Indian family more, doing more reading and research about my family and asking more questions to my cousins and mom. And then I really started getting into crystals and essential oils. Essential oils were definitely my entry point. Once I started using essential oils in my life, I felt a huge shift happening. And that's all scientifically proven. I think that's an easy entry point to understand the benefits of essential oils because they are nature's plants, and plants are just so important in our world. So I started doing essential oil blends. I really was intuitive with it. I read the book. I made sure I understood what could be mixed and what could not for safety reasons. I understood all of that on an academic level. And then I just let my intuition go with it. I started making blends for myself, like, oh, this is ailing me right now, or I need to feel this way. And I just started making things. And then I started making things for my family and friends. They would tell me how they were feeling, and I was like, let me make you an essential blend. This is going to help you. And they would come back amazed saying, I can't believe how much that helped me. So that was me listening to my intuitive third eye and really getting in touch. and feeling strong in that type of work. And that's why I offer that as a service now. It's called my psychometric reading. You can just write a note, send your energy in that note, and I'm really intuitive in figuring out what essential oils would benefit you and help you. From there, I started getting into crystals and crystal work. I've always been very leery of rocks my whole life. I think it's because I understood on an intuitive level that rocks were powerful and should be respected. I don't think you should just go into the earth and just take a rock. I think that it's a conversation between you and that medium and the stone people, and that you do it in the most respectful way that you can. So once I started meditating around which rocks could serve me, which ones want to be used, because then I learned too, like, the rocks are here on earth to serve us. They have a point of being here. So that made me also feel better about using crystals and inviting them into my home. And I'm also kind of free with my crystals. They are to come and go as they're supposed to. We trade them amongst each other in the family. I might give them to a friend when they're over. So crystals are not owned. Definitely not owned. They're a tool, and they tell you where they're supposed to be. So I went from essential oils to crystals, and then, like I shared in one of my first podcasts was I was sent a card deck that accidentally from Amazon, and that just really intrigued me and really opened the window wide open for me at that point. I was like, okay, now I'm being literally sent cards to my house that I did not order, and I have no idea how they ended up here. The address wasn't even close to mine. So that was something that really sprung the door open. I was doing cards. I got way into my yoga training, and so it all trickled. That was how I got into my spiritual journey. And that doesn't mean that that's how you have to do it too. It could start with yoga, because yoga is a really basic, great exercise if you're just going to look at it from that viewpoint. It's really great for your body to have that flexibility and mobility, and to have the breathing techniques so you can regulate your nervous system. So from a body standpoint, yoga's great. And then what's beautiful about yoga is it gets deeper from there. We can get into mind, body, and spirit with yoga. And there's so much to be gained if you tap into that side. So that's another great entry point. Other entry points, some people have been gifted card decks, tarot cards, oracle cards. Maybe you just got an affirmation deck from somebody as a gift. Those are other great entry points. You can start playing with your cards, using them daily, learning about what they mean. So that's a great way to get started. Essential oils, there's just so much access to that now with all the big companies out there. I definitely recommend doing your research. I would not just buy any old essential oils that you find on a shelf in a big box store. I would do the research and find which ones are sustainably sourced, cruelty-free, all of those things, because those all come with a level of vibration. If you're buying a high vibrational product, you're going to reap those benefits in the long run. If you're buying a low vibrational product that was just made for mass consumption in a very capitalistic society, you're going to get that level of frequency with those types of oils. So those are things to definitely think about. There's also many other numerous ways to get your entry point into spirituality. They could be personal experiences you have. Some things I like about Hay House publications, they talk about near-death experiences, the loss of a loved one. All of those types of things can also be entry points to help you start questioning things on a deeper level to understand why you experienced the thing that you experienced. Trauma is another entry point because we want to understand and heal from our trauma. So there's many different ways to do that as well. I want to encourage you that if there's something on your mind that interests you, that's been piqued in your interest, that keeps crossing paths with you, like, oh, I keep hearing about sound healing, I encourage you to look into that, because that can be your entry point. And you need to know that there is no one way, one road, one path to do this work. The path you are on is perfect and divine and exactly where you're supposed to be in the moment that you're in. You're going to come to it when you're supposed to. It's going to reveal itself to you, and you are going to find so much life, healing, and happiness in that thing that reveals itself to you. Your job at that point is to give it some attention. Read about it, watch videos about it, ask somebody who might be knowledgeable about it. So definitely taking that time to learn. That's a really big part of this type of work, is learning and listening. In switching gears and all of that, something that I've personally have gone through, and I'm starting to see some of my clients deal with as well, is when you do start the journey, you could start feeling a little bit icky, like your body physically might get sick. And some might say, without all of the deep knowing, and now that I'm where I'm at now, looking back, some might think that that's a warning or you shouldn't be doing it. I'm going to tell you now that that is the junk and the pain and the trauma and all the stuff your body's been holding on to for so long finally coming out. It's finally being released. And when all of that starts to get released, you could have possibly some physical reaction to it. I call it, I don't know what to call it. I haven't read anything about it. I tell my partner, I say, I'm spiritually sick this week. I call it my spiritual sickness, because I know it's a time where I'm really purging something because I've been working my way through it, and it's now really truly releasing out of my body. I got pretty spiritually sick when I started my metaphysics program. I just was tired. I felt weak. I felt just basically kind of like the common cold and flu, just not right. I didn't feel the best. And that's because I started meditating regularly. And as I meditated, I started going back into my childhood, back into my past, and you start purging all of that stuff that doesn't serve you anymore. You finally break ties with all of that stuff. When I learn to break ties, the day after is usually when I am very spiritually sick. I'm tired, I have a headache, I don't feel well. It almost kind of feels like a hangover as well too. And so cutting ties can also be a very tough thing to do, especially the next day. So my warning is here, when you find your entry point, you start doing that thing that really interests you. If you happen to get sick in this process or feel a little off, don't let it discourage you. That's it working. Now you shouldn't feel, I'm not saying you should feel very sick, like if there's something wrong with you, you need to go seek medical attention. But I'm just talking about the annoyances, the little things where you're just off. That has been my personal experience. So on those days, I take better care of my body. I drink more tea, I drink more water. I'm patient with myself. That's been a huge one I have to learn, especially in our society where we go so fast and we are in the rat race. You have to excuse yourself from all of that, and you have to give your body time and let it heal. One of the times I was the most spiritually sick, and it's probably true of many, is when I went through Reiki training 1. And I had the Reiki master teacher give me my attunements. Having such a strong healer give you attunements is very clearing. That's when I felt, like I was saying, some of those things I would see and stuff would really scare me when I was younger. That's when I felt that thing that's always been there, it left. And it left fast. In my meditation, as she was doing the attunements to me, I just saw a flock of birds flying far, far, far away from me to where they were out of sight. And at the end, I told her, I said, that thing that's always been around me, trying to scare me away from all this work, is gone. It's gone, finally. And so the day after from that, I was extremely tired. It was hard to drive home. I was so tired. I got home. I laid on the couch. I didn't even have energy for TV. I just wanted to drink my water, eat my dinner, and be just calm and peaceful. And then, so that was a 2-day training. That was the first day. And then the next day we had more attunements. So same thing. That, it took a week of being really giving myself a lot of grace and understanding and extra sleep to feel back to normal, and even better because I had purged so much from my energetic field. It was gone. So I've noticed that with a few of my clients. We're doing some life coaching now, and they've all taken turns here where the one calls in sick and then another one calls in sick, and they just say, I'm not completely sick, I just feel not great and I don't think I should come. And I say, that's fine. So I think that's something my clients are now experiencing working with me. And so I'm going to be more mindful about giving that disclaimer that this work can bring up some deep stuff and can make you extremely tired. So don't let that discourage you when you find your entry point and you find the thing that you're really loving. It is purging and is going to clear your energetic field so that you can go and find the next thing, the next great healing lesson that's in line for you to learn. As you start your spiritual journey too, I'd like to suggest that you start going on a full cleanse in life. When you start the spiritual journey, it's going to already naturally kind of happen, but you can encourage it and support it. So a full cleanse would be starting to be more mindful of the foods that you're eating every day. Really read the labels of the foods that you're consuming. Consider switching to organic if you can. Try to switch to more whole foods and less processed foods. All of those things will help you recover a little bit quicker as you're spiritually healing. So be mindful of what you're eating. Be mindful of the media and entertainment that you're consuming. When I started this process, I was just consuming anything that I liked, that was fun, that got me excited. And that stuff is not always serving us in our highest and best. I've really cleaned up the type of music I listen to. I've always not been a fan of like screamo, angry music, but now I'm even getting more nitpicky of the type of music and how it makes me feel and what they are singing about. I want to make sure that it's lighthearted and it makes me feel good. So for all of us, that could look different. I also went through my social media accounts. I was following a lot of pages about drinking alcohol or partying, and so I started getting rid of some of those things, and I definitely started following a lot of spiritual leaders and healers and other women who are in the personal growth space to just get inspired. A lot of it, they say, like, you can't just constantly consume that stuff and get a quick fix, but it definitely helps keep me on track and give me a community where I feel that sometimes that's lacking. So be very mindful of what you're consuming in that sense. Also, what you're watching on TV or for movies. Think about what it does to your nervous regulation system. If those movies and TV are making you super tense inside and giving you heightened levels of cortisol, maybe you should back off on those a little bit while you go through your process. So I said food. I said the content you consume. And then the next one is always the hardest one, the people you surround yourself with. That one also kind of happens naturally. As you change and decide to go this path, some people will naturally just fall away from you. Because they, on a soul level, their soul's not aligning with where you're at and where you're going. So they'll drop away, sometimes easily, sometimes more difficultly. Other relationships might have a larger strain because it could be your significant other. It could be a parent. We have deeper ties with those people typically. And so when we start doing this work and they start making their comments, a time might have to come where you have to set some boundaries. And in that boundary making, you're going to have to accept that if you want the relationship with those people, you might just not be sharing this part of you for a while. You'll have to give their soul some time to catch up and heal. Something I was listening to the other day made the most sense. I can't remember where I heard it, but they said that those people who are resistant to you changing have to mourn the person that you used to be. Because in a sense, they're losing who they knew. Because now you are different. And even if it's going to be for the better, it's still different. And so we can give space to those people, let them go through their natural process of grief, and then either they'll come with us or they won't. So those are always a little bit more difficult for people to go through. One of my biggest recommendations for doing this work and getting cleansed is surrounding nature. There's two things with nature. A really great suggestion that is really wonderful is waking up and getting the first rays of the sunlight coming up as the sun rises. Very beneficial for you. It helps with your circadian rhythm, and just waking up like that and walking outside and feeling the sunshine just sets your mood and your level at a totally different level. Those are sometimes harder for people to commit to because of work and lifestyle. So if you can do it, great. Even if you could just do it once a week, I think that's great as well. That's something I have a little bit harder of a time with. I go to work very early, so it doesn't give me a lot of time in the morning. But I'm already outside very early in the morning too, which is great. Another great suggestion, even if you can't do it in the first morning light, it's just great to get outside. Go to a local park, go out in your yard if you have one, go on your balcony if you have one. Get outside, get fresh air, and get more connected with nature as you go through this journey, because nature will hold you and it'll heal you. I really hope you're inspired to start dipping your toe into the spiritual world and seeing what there is out there for you. There are so many great healers out there to work with, to learn from. I hope something really starts to align with you and that you start learning more about the thing that interests you. Please remember that there's no one right way to do this. The way that you go through this work is the way that it's supposed to be for you. So if you have somebody telling you these hard rules about how spiritual work is done, maybe question that a little and look elsewhere, and make sure that you don't impose your journey on somebody else either. Just because something worked really great for you doesn't mean that that's going to work for your friend or whoever you're talking to. You can give it up and offer it as a suggestion, but let them be on their path and where they're at as well. I must say that I'm so honored to be doing this work and leading my clients that I have and their endeavors with healing and spirituality. I didn't ever think I would be here on this path. There were some things I knew and manifested, but then there's other parts that I never saw coming. So it's really amazing how just getting on the journey and going step by step and taking those leaps of faith and to see where they help you land. Because the universe has a beautiful plan for you. The universe knows your capabilities, your gifts, your talents, your strengths, and it wants you to live in those in the fullest. You are here, you have a purpose, and you can do amazing things. If working with me sounds like something that interests you, I encourage you to go look at my site, see if there's any times available to work with me. We can work online, and we can work in person if you're near the Southern California area. If you have any questions about your entry point and what you're considering maybe possibly trying, I'd love for you to ask in this episode in the questions part. Just type in your question and let me know what you're thinking about trying, and maybe I could send you in the right direction or encourage you to follow that direction. Thank you for listening to this episode, and I really hope it inspires you to either get back on track with your spiritual journey if you've fallen away, or to start your spiritual journey and to continue to grow it stronger. If this podcast helped you out in any way, you got a good story out of it, you enjoyed it, it maybe enlightened your day, please share this podcast on any social media you have. Let your friends know about it, your families know about it. That is the best way to thank a podcaster and small business owner. Share away.